Thanks, Sophie. Welcome now to our first panel session of the day, Innovation and the Future. And joining me here on the virtual stage are three of the people leading and driving innovation and transformation of DAM for media and entertainment. Deanna Ballew of Widen, Mike McGuinness of AMC Networks, and Tom Pigel of Woodwing. We're going to explore where DAM is headed, including some of the major technological transformations underway. As always, pop your questions in the Q&A box. We'll get to as many as we can. And as we talk here about, where technology is and where it's headed, maybe think about what innovation would make a real difference for you. What do you want to be able to do where you need the products and the technologies to support you? Send us your challenging questions. First of all, though, we'll have each panelist do a short introduction, a little bit about themselves and their DAM journeys so far. Deanna, let's start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. It's great to be here. And I am with Widen, and we've been doing digital asset management since the early 2000s. And I've been with Widen since 2004. So it's been a very long journey for me. And I've seen over that time just how innovation through increased bandwidth and all of the devices that people have, how that's really changed the content that we create and also the content that we consume. So just the rise in video, spin sets, online games, there's so much content. The velocity of content has really taken off, which also gives the need for new technology. And then just all of the channels that I've seen over the years. So, when I started, it was like single channels, whether that's print or flyers or catalogs. And now we have to deal with many channels, from print to social, personalization, e-commerce, and email. Email didn't die. That was one of the things that we had talked about like 10 years ago. Will email continue? It's definitely continued. It's just taken a different form. So thanks for having me.
Yes. It's very hard to kill technologies. We get new ones, but sometimes it's hard to kill the old ones off. Mike, tell us about your world.
Thanks, Graham. I started down my DAM path in the late 90s. Serendipitously, I was doing back-end system integration, a lot of SAP work, and got asked to do a digital asset management program for a publisher. And then we ran around and did that for a whole bunch of publishers and music companies. And that kind of became, excuse me, my new gig. And that's what I've been focused on. I left consulting to go to one of my clients who I put a DAM system in for, HarperCollins, and I worked there both in IT and then in a new technology group to bring new technologies to market and deal with the scaled emergence of ebooks. I went back to consulting and then most recently left consulting again to see how things were unfolding in the broadcast space. And I'm with AMC Networks now, and we're doing a major digital supply chain reengineering program with media asset management at the heart of it. And so I'm also amazed, as Deanna said, with how things have progressed, but I'm probably more amazed at how it hasn't in some instances and how some folks are still facing the same challenges of siloed workflows. And there's so many people out there with an increased fluency around digital, but they're still struggling from the cultural and the people and process challenges as technology marches on. So I think there's a good balance of things we could talk about and look into what's coming down the pike. But thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent tee up to some of the things we'll hopefully explore here. And Tom, tell us a little bit about you and your world.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Tom Pijel. I'm a product manager at Woodwing, and I'm focusing on DAM and content creation strategies. And what I find most interesting is this very complex content creation processes and workflows. And if you look at our customers, often we refer to this as a term as a content spaghetti. So it's really that mix of content, the different channels and people that make content orchestration a very interesting and complex topic. And of course, your DAM plays a crucial role in this whole process. So by deeply integrating your DAM into your daily processes and workflows, and people and tools can work seamlessly together to plan, create, and manage, and finally distribute your content. So very interesting space to be in.
Indeed, indeed. And, you know, I think one of the threads that we've already seen emerge from a couple of the earlier sessions was the quest for automation, and especially automation through AI and ML. You know, the buzzwords in our industry for a while starting to become more and more real. Where would you folks say that is today? What's real today about machine learning and AI, and, you know, where are they headed? Maybe Deanna, we'll start with you there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, AI is real today. At a certain point, like we're just at the tip of the iceberg for this. Really, machine learning has really started to take off. This is, you know, performing repetitive tasks and being able to learn from past history, learn from data, and putting that into place. So where I see, you know, AI, or let's say machine learning, really picking up is how it can supplement our human needs. So what we do on a regular basis, scanning images, maybe identifying cancer faster, or, you know, exploring images from space, things like that. AI can do really good things, really powerful things there to supplement what we already are doing at a way bigger scale. But at the end of the day, all of this is built on data and the quality of data. And so making sure that we focused on good data and clean data, and also the biases that exist in data, that's really where we're at right now. How do we get data sets to even, you know, build on top of that, the machine learning, and then after that, the AI, the intelligence that could come from it. So that's where I see us at.
Well, and I think data quality might be something we explore, you know, even in its
Yep.
own right. That's quite a meaty topic. Yep. Tom, where are you seeing machine learning and even AI playing?
Yeah, so we see a lot of different AI technologies. So you have your standard technologies that can classify objects within an image, for example. That's already pretty advanced, but actually there's another angle which is much more interesting, and that's that we also see things like celebrity detection, emotional analysis of an image, and then not just, okay, what is the emotion of the person in the image, but what is that image triggering with your audience, and also AI that, for example, can advise you which of 5 images would best suit your brand guidelines or your customer personas. And I think that is also a very interesting technology that can help you select the right image for the right channel.
And Mike, I think in the video world, you perhaps see parallels with what Tom talked about for images.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that folks aspire to do, and I think we're doing some of it. I think going in and having automated agents or machine learning look at content so that you can know whether there's inappropriate content, ways to apply it in our industry standards and practices. So you could say, oh, what's this rated? Or do I need to do some editing to take this out and make it available through different channels and whatnot? I think it gets back to trust. I think it's trust but verify. So use machine learning to take it to a certain point, and then have humans look at it. And I think people are getting more comfortable with it. We have another incident where, or another situation where our rights system has to pass quite a bit of information into our digital supply chain and our media asset management system to let folks know what they can and can't use. And that required a pretty massive conversion of data. And in some instances, there were manual processes and contracts that had never made it into a system. And so there was a combination of machine readable, but then it has to go through a process to be vetted and validated. And so I think as people get more comfortable with it, they'll start to trust, but they're always going to want to verify. And then what I'm seeing happening is now folks are coming to us and saying, hey, can you automate this? Hey, can you apply some higher order intelligence to this so I don't have to do the same repetitive task over and over? So I think as our users get more educated and get more trust in the technologies that are available, there'll be sort of an acceleration of this, and it'll move forward at a much faster pace than it has so far.
And
I think you're
trust but
reinforcing
verify.
Deanna's point about data quality, right? Oh, sorry, Deanna, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say trust but verify is a great point of saying like this is, you can use it, but you're using it to augment our human task, right? So getting through a scale of content or videos and then, you know, segmenting that and saying like, here humans, let's go look at this, or people or teams, like now take this to the next level. So I would definitely agree with that's exactly the point where I see us at in our journey.
Just another interesting. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
So yeah, and also look at the different AI technologies and integrate those into your DAM so that you really can take advantage of those different technologies, different vendors out there, and then have this combined set of metadata that helps you drive making your decisions. So really, this combination is key.
I was just going to add another interesting wrinkle that I've seen happen where because it adds that trust but verify, but in a weird sequencing where you crowdsource metadata assignment first, and then through the wisdom of crowds, you get better, richer metadata, and then you applied machine learning to that. So you start with a really rich source that still needs to be whittled down, and then you put that in front of the experts. And I think that's a really interesting use of a couple of different things, the ability to crowdsource at scale, but then run it through a machine learning filter and then put it in front of people. And now the experts are looking at a much richer, better data set.
Mm-hmm.
So crowdsourcing, structured or unstructured?
Both. Both. There's been some really interesting, and one of them a fairly old use case that I was exposed to through David Lipsey, where they were crowdsourcing images for a collection, and you put it out to the crowd, and I forget what they were using for it, but it'll come to me. And images for a museum where there were people who were like, hey, that's my grandfather sitting on that construction site, or I know what that brownstone is because I have relatives, or I used to live on that street. Information you wouldn't have gotten from just a clinical analysis. You might, you can certainly now with things around, Google Images and Google Earth and all of these different applications with Google. But here were people that were adding much more rich metadata that you wouldn't have known about people in images or particular locations. And so it was a very interesting case study that David had exposed. David, who runs a lot of the Henry Stewart stuff, had exposed me to some years ago. And I've seen other folks apply that same technique since then as a filter to get a lot of metadata at scale, filter it down because you see what repeats. You also see the one-offs and the interesting quirky things, and see if you put those through and see what you get out of it.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that is interesting when we talk about not only that structured or unstructured to classify or organize some of our data, but it's also what data we can create with AI. So if you think of natural language generation, NLG, and being able to use that, like Tom mentioned, when you have your brand guidelines, to then suggest what rich content you might want to put with your images. Like what would you pair together? What is the text that you might put together with your content that's going to reach the right audience? So I think NLG is something that we're really seeing starting to thrive, especially, with Google and Microsoft building that technology. And we could see that coming into play as we create content too. So like there's another caveat that piques my interest on content creation.
And to add to that, so also AI can then also verify what is the emotion that is actually triggered with the reader. So is this the right headline or caption for an image or not? Or should I better use a different keyword?
Mm-hmm. So
what sort of impact
recommendation?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say it gives you a base recommendation of all the things that you might think. And then you as the marketer can then decide what exactly you want to put together.
Really focus on your creativity. And I think that's still important, that it's human creativity, but then, enhanced with this AI, so that it's really a tool that helps you be creative.
Mm-hmm.
So going hand in hand with quality is quantity, and we're sort of staring down increasing volumes, sometimes staggering, volumes of files and content. How does the machine learning and the AI help with efficiency, operational efficiency, and just the sheer volume of content we have to process?
Yes, it can automatically classify your content so that it can help you find the best quality images out there, and then you can make that selection. Because if you have to process to tens of thousands of images a day, then yeah, you really need help to do this in an efficient way.
And
I think it'll be interesting. This. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike. Nope, go first, Mike.
I was going to say that it'd be interesting that as all of our stakeholders become more sort of used to this new normal of machine learning meets the traditional human power, but there's things that we'll start to learn about machine learning. And an example I'll give you, I don't know how many of you have seen the Cortana Microsoft thing where it actually looks at your schedule and your emails and this and that, and it starts to tell you, hey, why don't you schedule focus time? Or here's a meeting coming up and here's a file we think might be relevant. I mean, once someone looks at that and finds use in it, they're going to go, oh, why doesn't my DAM do that? Like, why doesn't my DAM alert me that there's a new file that's been uploaded that based on my behavior and what I'm working on, I'll care about that. Because that same technology can be applied. And as people start to see it being applied in other parts of their workday and their life, they're going to have an expectation that it be pervasive and be good. I mean, I'm actually impressed with the Cortana stuff because so far it's been guessing right pretty well. Like it does prompt me and say, oh, you have a meeting at 2 o'clock. You might care about this file. You know, the file that you got to go look in your email for because they didn't put it in your calendar invite. And it just prompts you and said, oh, you might want this file. Well, that's right smack dab in the middle of DAM and what we do, and knowing and being alerted about files that are of interest to us. And if there was an agent monitoring for that, it would be a really helpful thing in terms of workflow acceleration and reuse on assets and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
You know, here's a good question that's come in. That's all part of this. What kind of challenges or barriers have we come across when implementing AI and ML? Essentially, what's not working yet? We're talking about what's working and what's good. What isn't working yet that we have to be aware of that our audience should pay attention to?
Yes, I think. So I've been asked the question. Okay, can you, for example, tag a whole bunch of images but then they are tagged, okay, this one has a car, but yeah, I really need a red car driving on this road. It has to be a BMW or a Mercedes, and really all those little details. There you see that sometimes AI is a little too broad and just tag it as a car or a dog, where actually you're interested in, okay, what kind of car is it? What kind of dog is it? So really that detail is sometimes missing in AI. It's something that I see happening. Or for example, if you want to analyze all your product related material, then AI might not even be the best technology. Then maybe it's even better to integrate with your PIM, because that one really has all the data already at hand. So sometimes people think, okay, I need AI, but sometimes they just need algorithms or integrations with other systems.
I was going to say something similar, that sometimes the users aren't asking for it. They're asking for so many other things first. They didn't get to it yet. So I think sometimes it's going to be up to DAM practitioners to start to see what users need, because they have an understanding of the leverage it could create. Like, I think there are still users out there and stakeholders out there that don't know that they can ask for things that are higher order. And I think that it's up to us to start to explore that and drive that, because it's not a far out frontier. It's not space, it's something much more present and accessible.
I would say the thing that needs to change really is us. So we are expecting to still do keyword searching and to get back exactly what we would do if a human was entering in keywords. That's not what AI can do best. AI is not going to get that accuracy like Tom was talking about. It doesn't do it best, but it can do really great with visual searches. It can do really great with sentiment searches. It can be very powerful for recommending content to you as a user to find it. So we have to start thinking about, like, how do we as people want to find that content, and how then can we use AI to allow that to happen? So think about a Netflix experience versus traversing folder structures and looking at one-off metadata. Like, you may just need something for a particular thing. So if you were thinking of natural language processing, and you're able to say, like, I need an image for this campaign, this audience that's going to meet this channel needs, it then brings you up a set of recommendations based on all of these other criteria that you're doing, and you can choose from that. Very different than if you're entering red BMW region. Like, the way we search and the way we find assets is going to radically change. And if we start thinking about how that might change, that allows us to open up so many more doors with AI.
So I say, Deanna, that whole concept of user experience and where that's going is a whole topic we should dive into, and we'll come back to that and come back to you that in a moment. We have maybe one final question on AI. It's come in from the virtual room. Would a move to AI eliminate or greatly reduce the number of digital asset managers needed? Will this make us obsolete? So I think sort of an interesting question about what does this mean for the role of the DAM team? And Mike, maybe we'll start with you. You live in an operations world. Is AI and ML going to get you more vacations in the Bahamas as the technology does your job?
It sounds very exciting and interesting if that's the outcome, vacations in the Bahamas. But I actually think, like most technologies, it will just change the nature of your job. I think as DAM practitioners, and to my earlier point about we're still trying to break down silos, we're still trying to get the full benefit of things, capabilities within DAM that have been around for a long time. I think that as we move from linear supply chains, digital and physical, to more networked supply chains, DAM practitioners are going to be spending a lot of their energy helping people connect with each other and connect the dots, the front end to the back end, rights to sales. And I think DAM practitioners they can be the grease on the skids of your digital supply chain because DAM is at the nexus of it. And so I think that machine learning will just help take some of that more mundane work off their plate, where they are, scorecarding metadata. I mean, people are still scorecarding metadata because metadata still stinks. And if you scorecard it, you get what you measure. But if you can start to take that off and start to do things that help enrich it, not only that, machine learning and AI is not going to do it all by itself. So it's still going to need subject matter experts that help facilitate that learning, not only by the technology, but by the users themselves, so that they start to understand and embrace it and clear that trust hurdle. So I think it will change the nature of what DAM managers or DAM practitioners do, to some degree, but I don't think it's going to entirely replace the job. The job will evolve into a higher order type of job.
Yeah, I would.
Yep, I think that makes perfect sense.
I would agree with that. The job changes. A digital asset manager, like, their job changes. Instead of organizing assets, your job can be about how your users find assets. So you might be, figuring out your business rules that will be applied to some of your algorithms, or how you're going to train that data set, or how you're going to, allow your users to adopt the new technology or make use of it, and connect to that digital supply chain, everything from upstream all the way down to the downstream channel. So I don't think it eliminates it. It just gives you new challenges and new things to learn.
Yes, I think it will allow you to really connect the dots between all those different systems that you have. And so putting the DAM more into the spotlight, so to say.
Excellent. So Deanna, let's come back to your user experience topic. We'll obviously have everybody weigh in here. We'll start with you. Where is the DAM user experience headed? Because I think, as you alluded to, we've sort of become accustomed to a very classic, like, library information science view of, searching, finding, even organizing assets, and that's increasingly less what our users are expecting, or their natural consumption patterns. So where is DAM user experience headed?
Yeah, I think, the foremost is technology is in service to human problems. So we have to think about, what is DAM doing that's going to help us as humans solve our problems? So when I think about, what this means, is it really means is, how is this technology going to allow people to find assets? So even the library science, that was all done in part so that you could walk into a library and get that taxonomy and go find your book within those library stacks. I don't know if anyone still learns the Dewey Decimal System, but it had a place. So now, as we look at user experience, as we see many generations trying to use the same system. So we need to be able to say, like, how are you going to find your assets? Is that going to be through audio search? Is that going to be through recommended content? There's so many other ways that people now experience finding things, mobile devices, there's a lot of other technology. So it's really about understanding your users that are using the dam, and then figuring out what problems you're going to solve for them, or how you're going to give them something great to do instead. So digging into their jobs, their pains and their gains, and then saying, how does DAM help their, complete their job, eliminate some of their pains, and give them a gain that's going to make their day great.
And I think if you build on some of the earlier comments, so on the DAM continuum, right, on the maturity curve, it's put all your stuff in one place so you can find it. That's table stakes. But then as you move up into workflow and some of the automation and AI and machine learning we've talked about, but the holy grail is, are we creating value? And I think that's where the evolution of the DAM, and I'm even getting past DAM manager into DAM practitioner, like it's a person who is not actually responsible for managing the assets. They will self-manage. It's about working with stakeholders in collaboration to connect the intended value. What did we acquire? Why did we buy this asset? Or why did we create it? To the actual value. Did anyone use it? And did it achieve that value or a different value? And then a feedback loop that says, okay, let's do more of this and less of that, because this is where the value is. And I think that's where we'll start getting to once we get beyond the basic ability. And some companies still don't have the basic ability to put all their stuff in one place so they can find it. There are still people putting their stuff in a whole bunch of different places. We're 3 years into, and I only joined 3 years ago, trying to harmonize Box, Dropbox, an actual DAM that we have, Cloudinary. Like, there's a matrix of all these things people are using just to put their stuff in one place. Now the next step is, okay, how do we harmonize that and make sure we're focused on the most valuable assets that we create or acquire? And I think that's going to be an interesting next step for a lot of organizations that have not reached that yet. They're not that mature in that regard.
No, and I'm fully agree with that. But also, you touch on value, and the value of your content is often overlooked. And what I see is that you really have to look at the individual components of your content. So it's not just an article or an image or a video. But if you break down these components, and as a user can freely find those components and create new content and create personalized content for your end users, then I think we are in a very good space where you can freely reuse your content in any way you want. But for that, you need to really look into the individual component that make up your content, and not just treat an image as an image with some metadata, for example.
How do you recommend people think about value? Oh, sorry, Deanna, go ahead.
I was just building on that. Like in that case, we're talking about, the users who are actually interacting with your content on the end, and how might you personalize that? How could you break your content into, smaller pieces, atoms of content, to then put them together to then serve my unique needs or your unique needs or somebody else's unique needs, to then make that content even more valuable because you're reusing it and repurposing it, which is, one of the benefits of a DAM is that reusability.
So you have this single source of truth, and there's a lot of value in that is not surfaced at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe tied to notion of value is something, Mike, you mentioned in your intro, is rights. Something that has also historically been seen as a little bit separate, a separate life cycle, a separate path, but increasingly critical to the ability to use and realize value in assets. Where do you folks see, rights information sort of becoming integrated with DAM, coming into DAM, being part of a DAM ecosystem? Mike, maybe we'll start with you since you teed that up for us.
Yeah, I'll give a shameless plug because I am in week 4 of a 4-week class I'm teaching at Rutgers, which is Rights for DAM. Why Rights Matter. It's for the DAM certificate course. And I think that what's really resonating with folks, the first cohort, is that it's increasingly required. There's too much at risk now that content can get out in the wild, is the expression that came up in one of the discussions. How do you control that? And I think there's a lot of, first of all, there's a value aspect to it. That's the commercialization. Did I get the content in the hands of the right folks that are bringing it to market, and then ultimately in front of the eyeballs that you want that content in front of? But also, did I have the rights? Did I do it within compliance of what I acquired that content for? Because even content that you create could have, to Tom's point, other content components that were added in that have their own unique rights, or there's all kinds of releases for people that appear. You could have a company picnic and have people present at it, but did you get releases? Do you need releases before you use that or reuse those photos? And so I think increasingly there is a liability that's got to be considered, but also it gets back to that intended use. You bought the content or you created it. Well, hopefully it's a digital asset. Well, is it an asset? It's only an asset if it's consumed and creates value. And so I think the rights associated with that, when you acquire it, you're negotiating for rights and putting a value on that, on whatever it was that you acquired. And I think integrating it is tough because it gets to all the complexity of any metadata, and then times the X factor, because rights data is increasingly, it's interesting, and I never realized this until someone pointed it out to me, is rights data is incredibly complex and sometimes intentionally vague. And so it's like a double whammy because it's intentionally vague, so you can maximize your use within a contract for that acquisition. But that intentional vagueness undermines people's confidence in, can I use it? Can I not use it? And it's another role for the DAM practitioner to step in and link people, because the DAM practitioner can't be the expert on every asset and on every right and on everything, but they can be the connector that brings folks together and says, if you're not sure, this is who you contact. And then they can help to automate some of that metadata transfer, simplify what can be simplified and make it accessible. And then red alert, this is not simple, it's complex, call this rights expert. And so I think there's going to be a lot more rights integration, but it's going to be a matter of managing that complexity.
Yeah. I think some of the complexity we're going to see especially with digital content, it's going to go with digital watermarks and embedding into it so it can be tracked and found. So, there's one thing of saying, here are the rights for you to use this, but then it's also, how can I go find if my content is being misused and make sure that I remove that from my brand integrity? So I think that as we continue to see digital imagery and videos and content increase, it's embedding that unique code and digital watermarks. I mean, you can see things with, Bitcoins and NFTs and all of the buzz that's going on there. Like that's probably the space of where this is going to grow. And then you're going to have technology that can flag it and to tell you. So hopefully as a DAM practitioner or even a legal, you don't have to continue to parse each and every one of this, or your digital rights is not a sidecar to your assets. It's all one and the same. So wherever that digital file goes, so do the rights. And then those rights can use technology to break it down for any, human to understand what they're doing right and wrong. So it's very human readable.
Yes. Rights is indeed a very complex topic, and also what you see is that rights differ from country to country. So if you are a global organization, it multiplies even more. So yes, I think it's very crucial that you have a system that can integrate with those local and adapt to those local requirements of your users.
So maybe integration is actually another thread worth pulling. So there's integration with rights, but DAM in any kind of content ecosystem or any kind of content lifecycle or supply chain is potentially integrated with many other tools. Where would you folks say it makes sense to integrate with DAM? Where does it not? Or if there's no single clean answer to that, how do you encourage people to think about where to embark on an integration versus where not?
I think it's crucial. Yeah, so I think it's crucial that you integrate your DAM into the tools that your users use every day. So then also things like metadata ingestion becomes a little bit easier, because then that metadata is actually provided by the tools that the users use every day. So you see a lot more adoption for those kind of metadata fields that are actually coming in from other sources. So I think it's crucial that you integrate it into your daily processes and workflows.
I think that's actually, a really, sorry, Tom.
No, please continue.
No, I was going to say that's a really good point, and I'll point to a publisher. I think I'm paying them a compliment, so I think I can say their name, but I won't. No, you can ask me some other time. But a publisher that actually put their DAM in on the back end, and then they had a front end that allowed them to control the user interface and what they could expose or not expose. And this is 20 years ago. It was pretty progressive architecture because they bought a very expensive DAM that had a front end. And they intentionally said, I don't want to have to care and feed for that front end because it's built just for DAM. And I don't have users. We continue to call them DAM users, but they're just users. And the DAM is a part of an architecture that has content and metadata. And increasingly, that architecture has a whole bunch of different places that has content and metadata. And so the DAM allows you to bring your most important assets into a controlled space, but it's not always the best interface. It can be, but it's not always. And so you have to moderate that behavior and create a flexible ability to let folks use the tools they use, to Tom's point, and then let them get in and out of the DAM with less friction and more ease of access. Because if they have to swivel chair over to their DAM and then back to their day job, that's too much friction in this day and age.
They will use another way to find the asset and then bypass your DAM. And if you implement it or integrate it as a headless DAM or a hybrid DAM, where you use part of the UI, then you see much greater adoption.
Yeah.
And I think integration happens whenever you need to make sure that your content is consumed and reusable. So you need to meet your users where they're at, just like, Mike and Tom are saying. So like the purpose of your DAM is not to make sure that everybody comes into your DAM and to find the asset. The purpose is that your content is being reused. So whatever downstream channels you have your social media marketers on or your e-commerce marketers on, any of those channels, if you can integrate those things downstream and get the content into their fingertips and decrease that friction, like that is a key place to make those initial connections, and then meet the data where it's at. Like you shouldn't have to replicate data. There is so much structured data in your PLM systems, your ERP systems, your project management systems. Like just pull that structured data in and save yourself a lot of time of having to re-enter it. So meet your data where it's at and meet your users where they're at, I would say would be my recommendation.
Yeah. Yes, and it's also what's very important is, so if you create content, and also the context matters. So if you use a video or an image and you use it in a social post, you use it differently than you would use the same image in print. So you really want to use that image within the context of your social stream or within the context of creating this print brochure, for example.
Yeah, a question has actually come in related to this. Are you able to speak about DAM integration with records management? It's sort of an interesting thought, because you can imagine that going in two different directions. There's a DAM world consuming information from records management, and there's potentially DAM consuming things like retention policies from a records management world. What sort of integrations have you folks seen between DAM and records management?
I'll give the consultant's answer.
Go for it.
It depends. I think the thing you have to have is some guiding principles, because the records management system is for managing records. If you feel that those are digital assets and you'd have to really put that through a rinse cycle to determine that, then you could put certain things into your DAM. My initial instinctive reaction is, I think it would be, the DAMs are already potentially cluttered with a lot of information and content that never sees the light of day, unfortunately. So you'd want to be really, really careful to understand the use cases for why you would want to either funnel them through your DAM or redundantly put them in your DAM or use your records management system as an intake into your DAM. Like, you'd have to really understand the use cases around it to say, oh, why would I want to do that? Because then you'd have to work equally as hard to filter it out for the people that aren't dealing with that particular use case. So you don't get the, the search results that come back and overwhelm you. Like, well, why am I seeing that? Like I didn't expect to see that. And I think that's the age-old problem with DAM, is when you get search results back, and it's gotten much better over the years, but if you start to put different types of assets in there, your user stories are going to be really important to help you on that user consumption end.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I think it's, comes down to those use cases. It does depend, but product information, so SKU information. So with our system, we have a PIM component that goes along with your DAM. So it's this idea of there's structured data, possibly, you'd have to look at that has your SKU information and product descriptions that may go along and need to live side by side, or would be helpful with those digital assets that represent those products. So again, be selective. Don't just pull in data for the sake of data, like Mike is saying. It has to have some use, especially if you're going to push it downstream to e-commerce. That might also be where your DAM can act as that intermediate, where it's pulling stuff in and then sending some content downstream to your other channels as well.
Yeah,
Yes,
just to add a quick, go ahead, Tom.
I also fully agree. So really look at the use cases of where it makes sense. So to put either your DAM at the front, or another tool at the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would liken it to, I remember on my first DAM project, when they saw a technology that was going to put everything in one place, they wanted all the data in there, and the DAM metadata model was exploding, because they were like, well, if I just have to go to this one system for everything, and we had to put a guiding principle in that said, not all of your metadata belongs in your DAM. You need the metadata that helps you to manage digital assets. And that was a very hard construct for them. Like, well, while I'm in there, I might as well have access to this, 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 and this, which was just incremental metadata or specification information that wasn't for the purposes of storing, finding, retrieving the asset. It was just bonus metadata that they wanted to come along for the ride. And so I would be careful with starting to explode the DAM to be your one-stop shop for everything you might want. And then how do you manage that, and how do you separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak?
We're almost out of time, but there's one rather interesting question just came in that maybe we'll do just a quick round the table on. Is the rise of the NFT ecosystem having any impact on DAM? Where do we see those overlaps?
I've really been noodling on this one, and where and what might they be. And NFTs are just extremely interesting, because it's not about, the value isn't in the scarcity of that asset, right? So if you think about collector items, and there's a lot of value for things that are rare. In this case, these digital assets aren't rare. However, they do, they mean something. They have value because we've given it value with that digital code. So, I don't know if those will be placed into DAMs. I don't know if B2Bs will start purchasing them, or if there'll be a B2B or even B2C type use of NFTs yet. But it is very intriguing on how it's rising and the amount of money people are spending on it.
I'll tell a funny story. That I had a guy that was on my team who was really, really smart. He was like a rocket scientist several years ago in a previous life. And in a meeting once, the CEO said to him, Rich, you're so far up around the curve, I can't see you. And that's where I would put NFT for me and the people I'm working with right now, is that it's a little too far out there for most of the folks that are dealing with some more mundane challenges. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't be cognizant of it and aware of it and anticipating it. So I think it will have an eventual impact. I may be retired before it does, but I think it's one of those things that's pretty far up around the curve, I think, but it could be coming fast.
Yes, it's one of those things to keep an eye on, and then see how it can benefit your use cases. But yeah, not at this point, I would say.
So something we'll be talking about in DAM conferences for years to come. It feels like we've barely scratched, the proverbial surface of, DAM innovation here today, and yet we're already out of time. Huge thanks to Deanna, Mike, and Peter for fielding so many questions and helping us think it through. We're going to continue our theme of making DAM's future real in a moment with Charles Duncan of Disney and his presentation, Enabling Dynamic DAM. And that will start in just a few minutes. Plus, don't forget to check out the sponsor booths in the exhibition and maybe snag some prizes along the way. We'll see you back here shortly.